Well, welcome everyone. We're back. We missed last week. I guess everybody was busy. Um, Hold on. That doesn't matter. We're a community, and so it's up to you guys when we do and don't do these things. Um, Thanks all for coming. We have a lot of new faces in the room. Please let's keep on using the raise your hand button if you want to speak on a certain topic. I invited Lars to the gang. I don't think he's in the Discord officially yet, especially with a focus on yet because but I invited him because he has done some own NFT projects, and I know NFTs have been a very hot topic in the Discord. So I thought it would be cool to have him on board as well. Like I said, there's more people, new people here, so that's cool to would love to hear from them as well. So let's just kick it off. I had for the other call, I had three different topics listed. We had the DAOs, which is a very new approach to building a business. I did speak to an expert actually, and unfortunately she couldn't be here today. So it might be nice to move that to next time because she has definitely some insight, experience in that and knowledge that we would love to share. I don't know, or maybe is there someone on the call that has firsthand experience when it comes to DAOs? If so, please do speak up. If not, then we'll just continue. And the other big news, of course, last week / the week before, which will definitely take us into the whole Web 3.0 / NFT space is Nike, who of course bought the agency, which has the very hard name. Who can pronounce it? RTFK or RTFTK? David, you work at Nike. You should know.
It's actually Artifact, I believe.
Artifact. See, that's a lot easier to remember. So yeah, they made a big announcement. Of course, it's a big move into the space. It's a whole studio, which is interesting because what will that turn out to be and how they're gonna approach these things? I don't know. So I would love to hear some thoughts. Who has some first takeaways on what Nike is planning with the acquirement of this new agency? Yes, go ahead, Lars.
I mean, I think that they want to create stores inside of the metaverse. I think that's the biggest thing that I see that their plans are. It's just to have first mover advantage with big brands coming into the metaverse, building let's say stores there where you can actually, let's say, buy an NFT of sneakers that you want to have or clothing that you want to have when that starts to become the norm. So I think that's what I have heard in the spaces is the logic response to why Nike did something like that, because they have the ability to create those types of models. So they probably just needed their skill sets. And that's why they probably bought the agency. That's at least my assumption, and the assumption that I've heard going around in the spaces that I joined about big brands going into the metaverse and big brands going into Web3 / NFTs too.
I wonder then how they're gonna decide where they're gonna build a store, or how would that work? Like there's gonna be different metaverses, and it's like where is this gonna happen?
It's tricky. I think that Decentraland and Sandbox is the two that I've heard fall a lot of the time. Almost all the smaller projects compared to Nike, they would say, yeah, we're buying Sandbox land. So I hear that the most. So
Yes.
I'm not sure what the play is, how it integrates with other metaverses that might come out, especially, Facebook is planning. I think that's the true war of the big corporations. It's going to be who is going to determine what the main metaverse is, and if they don't integrate, does it become the new social platforms, right? Like you're on Facebook or on Twitter or on LinkedIn, or is it going to be like cross-platform where you can, step through a portal and you're in a different environment? I don't know, but I think that's what is going to be determined.
Yes. the Waarheid. I would love to hear your name,
Oh,
or I just
yeah, Avan. Sorry,
yeah.
my other Google account linked. Sorry, guys. Nice to meet you guys. My name is Avan. Um, yeah. Well, my opinion about like Nike is kind of, yeah. It's kind of difficult for me to comprehend for Nike to step in just by themselves. You know, it's a very centralized company,
Hmm.
and most of the people that stepped in the space, they have a background of like, of course, first looking into Bitcoin and looking into decentralization. So I think they were forced to, yeah, like take a shot to buy one of the best teams in this space, and that was Artifact, especially on digital fashion, to get exposure in Web3. I think that's why they did it.
Hmm.
But there's still a lot of difficulties because they promised or they told us that we can't use our clone X's with Murakami trades for commercial license. That's very weird because it's like a decentralized space. So one of the bigger influencers, he 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 bought a clone X and he fractionalized the clone X.
Hmm.
And what happened is that he tweeted to Nike like, "Hey, I'm still fractionalizing my clone X. I'm still like using it for a commercial license. So try to stop me." And they didn't really respond. So like, it's kind of hard to comprehend where they want to go with this takeover for from Artifact. For me,
Yeah.
I don't really know what's like really the future of that. I do think that they're aiming to um, um, get a great combination of physical and metaverse items. Like they
Hmm.
already told that we will get some of the clothing of the clone access in real life. So I think that's the goal also. But like for the future, yeah, like a lot of people I speak, they don't really like the project because it's Nike and
Yeah.
centralized. You know? Yeah. So
Yeah. So for the people that don't know, the Clone X is an original project from Artifacts.
yeah, it's their first Avatar PFP project, but they
Yeah.
have like sneakers. They have like digital sneakers before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I do understand that people. Of course, it's a confrontation of beliefs in terms of decentralization versus centralization. But I also believe that at one point these big brands will get in, and that there is going to be a room for them somewhere. Same as there's going to be room for like there's also still going to be generations of people that will not go fully bankless, for example, that will not go fully decentralized and still like to have some sort of you know old school banking system that they can fall back on or whatsoever. I think really believing that the whole world is going decentralized is maybe a little bit too how do you say that, too ambitious or positive thinking. um but I strongly believe there's always going to be room for both, and that I don't think that's a bad thing. And I mean, I guess we all could imagine like the Nikes and the Adidas companies of the world, that they would come in at one point. And I do believe Nike did the right move by indeed, instead of going try to do it themselves, just go and partner up with the most talented team in the space, like you said, at least in the digital fashion space, instead of again trying to recruit their own talent and start like that. So yeah, it's a very interesting move, a very interesting acquisition, and I guess we're going to find out how this is going to play out in the next 10 years.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Like it's inevitable that there always will be a market for like centralized parties also in this decentralized space. But but for me personally, I do it because like I know there's a big ROI from an investor standpoint, but like
Hmm.
from my personal standpoint, I don't really like the big brands coming in for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense. Makes sense. David, what do you think? Oh, yes, go ahead.
Uh, yeah, I think. Well, of course, I work for the company. I was as shocked as you guys when the news actually came out. I think I messaged you, Funds,
Yeah.
about it. To be honest, I think from a business standpoint, working for the company, I think it's a great pickup. To be honest, I think you're extremely right in terms of instead of bringing people in terms of trying to hire them and create their own, section in the business to try and attack the space. I think it's good that they've hired people who are knowledgeable about the space, who have been working on stuff for the last couple of years, and want to continue to do so. I think the Artifact guys even said once Nike acquired the company that that's kind of what they had in mind, that they kind of Artifact was built off their love and admiration for Nike. So it's a match made in heaven. I do agree with Evan, is it? Sorry, I apologize if it's not Evan, but I do agree with Evan where he says as a person who looks at the space as decentralization, I'm not too sure a big company coming in and picking up one of the wonder kids, I would like to call it, of the space is a great thing, just because I think we're going in such a great path of, people pushing ownership and developing their own projects and being creative and coming up with ideas. Like, this is still quite a new space. And Nike coming in, and not just Nike, but Adi even partnering up with G Money and Board, Ape Yacht Club over there. It does seem like maybe it's a bit hype beast at the moment. I know if that's maybe not a word you want to attach to this, but all in all, I think it will head in a good direction. What will be interesting for me personally is how much further along do we go? Is this just a money thing? Is this a creative thing? Is this something that's going to be around for 1 year, then maybe it takes a dip and then it evens out? I have so many questions, as much as I'm sure that we all do. But I do think it's a good thing for the meantime. I'm not sure long term what this will look like, what the playout will be. To be honest with you, even though I work at Nike, I hear nothing. So it is a funny one, but I do think it's a good thing in terms of, for the meantime, looking at how the space can grow and develop. It looks like it's having big backing now, so that can only be a positive thing. But it will be intriguing to see how the next couple of years develop, and if Nike keep this forever, because they have acquired the company. I don't think it's just a partnership. So that's interesting in itself also, right? Because Adidas are partnering with Bored Ape Yacht Club rather than acquiring it. So yeah, I think if you read between the details, some companies are doing a few funny things. So yeah,
for sure. Lars?
I also think that Adidas is going after the one with the most credibility there as far as partnership goes. So the valuation of a company like that would be a lot higher than the company that Nike just acquired. I think that plays a big role in why it's a partnership and not an acquisition. But I also believe that there's going to be an element of centralization in the onboarding phase if big brands are going to come in, because I think that the bridge or the knowledge required to jump into the NFT space or the crypto space is still too technical for the average person to come in. So I believe that the centralization of having the ability to pay by credit card, to have an NFT automatically airdropped in your wallet, similar to what Shopify is doing with their integrations, is the first step of getting people into the crypto and Web3 space. And I think the two biggest events are not, I don't think Nike and Adidas are the two biggest events that happened this year. I think Visa acquiring a CryptoPunk and then writing a white paper on it. And the second thing, Adobe adding an NFT feature for layers of ownership are the two biggest things that happened, I think, this year. Because that is that any creation can truly be traced back to ownership of the creator. And the second thing with Visa, I think that's the biggest players, because that's how the money moves most of the time. Visa, MasterCard, those types of payment processing, because that is how we can actually transform from fiat to crypto in the easiest and the fastest way. So I think that Nike and Adidas are just responding to like the potential of the technology. And I think that Nike I think it's a smart move. I do think it's a long play move, not a short term, like it's not quick turnaround of money. I don't think it's more of like, let's look for the future of when we are going more digital.
Yeah, for sure. Yurian, you have something to add, I think.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, first off, Vince, thanks for adding me to the call and thanks for inviting me to the Discord. I came in a little late. I'm not going to introduce myself. That might come later. But it's interesting. You're talking about centralization and decentralization. I think it's very obvious that big brands, when they see an opportunity to extend their brand value, move into there's going to be a digital world like a metaverse. So it's only about, for them it's about exposure. So we are going to be the first players that have exposure in this new digital world. And I agree with Lars. It's a very long-term play, but they are just moving the first chips in and saying we're betting on the digital universe and the metaverse and stuff like that. I think from a business perspective, they're not going to make that much money on this in the long term. They're going to make a few millions. I think Adidas made like 23 million selling their NFTs or something like that. So I think it's very logical that they're doing that. Again, centralization, when we're talking about Visa, I would expect that because there is so much hype around this industry, that a lot of big brands they're gonna eat up the winning how do you say that the winning technology. It's very obvious for me to think of, for instance, an Amazon when it's about payments, that they would acquire or massively acquire a token in a network, and then they would move a network through ownership into something that they own, because I still think that's a very inherent risk of these decentralized networks, is that a big company can just go on the market and swoop up a lot of coins, and in that way they could potentially force ownership over an application or over a network or over a use case or whatever. So I'm not gonna make a prediction, but I'm just going to say that there are going to be a lot of brands like Visa that are going to move into the space eventually, and they're going to eat it up, because those are the guys with the big money. The retail owners they are just too small. So I was wondering what you guys thought of that potential of big companies, big players coming in, and then the whole decentralized aspect falls away. Thank you.
Thanks for the ad, Yurian. Two things I would like to add to that is one, in terms of Visa. Funny enough, I was listening to a podcast like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and the leader of the project for Visa was on that podcast, and he was, explaining how they did it, why they did it, and the first thing I thought with myself, this is just a brand move. It's just a branding move. Visa just wants to show that they are the go-to brand when it comes to payments for this, everybody that's into crypto, etc. But they said, yeah, but he first explained it as that I guess Visa has a museum when it comes to, for all their things, with they store all these things with regards to money and payments, and how that was in 100 years ago until now. Like, they have old school money printing machines over there, these card stamps, like, how do you make your first credit cards and stuff they have. They said, yeah, so we thought it would be good to have a CryptoPunk. Was it a CryptoPunk they bought? Yeah, they bought a CryptoPunk. To have a CryptoPunk in there, because it's such, they're the OGs, they're the first ones of this new blah blah. Then 30 minutes later into the call, he said it was the best marketing stunt they did in the last 24 months. So, like, there we go. That's the monkey coming out of the sleeve. So I indeed think, also listening to him talk, Visa is very serious about this space, and believes in digital money. Maybe not crypto as in, but more the stable coins, and the way of transferring money easily and faster between people and countries and all these things. And so they're very on top of that. So that's something I wanted to add. And then back to your question, Yurian, on big whales, buying so much coins in order to get ownership of something. I think that's one of the questions I have about DAOs, for example, is that there's been some examples of that already, where there's a DAO and you vote based on the ownership of the token, and where indeed a hostile party came in and bought up so much tokens that they basically took over the DAO. So that indeed is a very big security threat. But I also believe in the space is so innovative that there will be a solution for that at one point. I strongly believe, if there's not already or soon. But like I said before you came in, Julian, we have next call. We have a DAO expert that's going to come in and explain a little bit more about how that works, and I hope she has some insights into that security part as well. So I would like to now go over to Avan, if I say correctly.
Yeah. I had a question for Yurin, because like from a technical standpoint, like whales can like manipulate the market caps, but they can't really manipulate like decentralization with like running full nodes, things like that. So what do you mean, like how they will centralize a
No,
blockchain?
I agree with, from a technical perspective, you're totally right. What I meant more in a stake of not in a stake. What I meant is that, for instance, a DAO, like Funds also said, when you have a token that represents ownership of a project, right, which gives you voting rights or gives you the right to get an interest through staking. When a project, I agree with the fact that when you have a lot of nodes in a network that all agree on a transaction, that it's not easy to manipulate the network by spoofing a lot of nodes and saying, I'm the majority on the network, so this network is mine, and therefore I would like to push something new. I agree with that. But the whole case around Web3 gives ownership back to the people, I don't believe in that, because the big guys, when we're talking about ownership, they will swoop up the big stakes. I'm not talking about whales, but I'm talking about corporations or people that want a control over something. That is just a natural form of doing business. People want control, so they will try to achieve that. And where there's a possibility, I think they will try to do so. So yeah, that was what I wanted to say.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, for me, from the DAO perspective, I'm invested in City DAO. It was a project that was like Vitalik, for the founder of Ethereum, he had an essay about it on his like personal blog. And yeah, like we all have like these NFTs where we can where we have the possibility in the future to buy off-chain land because we hold the NFT in our wallet. I think it loses value when a big corporation or a big whale steps in, right? So like a lot of people will just like vanish, and it also like diminishes the goal of a decentralized project like that. So it doesn't really hold the same value, right? Because they can offer us a lot of money for our NFTs. We have like a 10,000K collection in total, and then yeah, the whole project actually falls down. So I think
But I find that interesting. Why don't you see it as an opportunity? Because basically, if they want to buy, right, why don't you sell it to them? Why wouldn't you let big corporations, if they find it interesting, if they find it an opportunity for them, they wouldn't come in to just collect NFTs. They will have a business purpose for it, right? So if there's a business purpose for that, why not let them scoop it up, and you could lock in your profits?
yeah, that's from an investing standpoint. That's the best thing, right? That's why I'm also invested in Clone X and Bored Apes. But for me, I think with City DAO, and I hope like a lot of these DAOs, they keep a focus on really decentralizing opportunities for the smaller players. And when the big players come in, like you said, they want more and more control. yeah, you never know where it stops, right? So there will be a lot of various ways for these DAOs to, yeah, give the small player more chances, I think. And like Fun said, there's so much innovation in the space. I think it will be reached, but like a lot of big players will make a lot of money in Web3 for sure. They will get their opportunities.
Jaren,
Yeah. I want to ask a question. What Jurien said as well, and what you both said, the risk of big corporations coming in and buying an entire, uh, maybe or a majority of the coin. What do you feel is the risk if you look at BlackRock, Blackstone? Those guys have more money than 99.9% of the big
Thank God.
corporations. Exactly. Yeah, they have what, almost $7 trillion in assets. It's not workable capital, but still. What do you feel is the risk of those guys, because those are comebacks. Comebacks. That's the threat I see a lot. But I would like to hear from you.
Well, maybe I could reply on that. Like I tried to make before, like the point I tried to make before, I don't see it as a risk. I see it as an opportunity. Actually, I'm very happy to see this space evolve into something very fruitful now for a lot of creatives, engineers, entrepreneurs, people that are doing new things. That's the new frontier. It's no longer just cool to have a tech startup. No, you need to have a crypto startup. That's the new thing. So I'm very happy that a lot of people are moving into the space. I think we're totally in an everything bubble. We spoke about this before. So if you see it as a risk that big companies move in and swoop up these equities or these collectibles or majorities or assets, I think that is actually an opportunity. If they do so, that solidifies my trust in an industry. So, to be honest, I see it as an opportunity. And I would you now have only the crazy Michael Saylor that is pushing corporates to invest and divest into Bitcoin and throw away their dollars. Um, but I would love to see a BlackRock CEO say we're gonna open a crypto department, um, because it's an asset class, maybe not defined as an as a specific security, but it's going to come. And I believe in it because there's an opportunity to make money, and these guys are in business to make money, as most of us are also in business to make money. So yeah, I think you should follow it. I think you should, because now what I'm seeing, what I'm thinking is that, okay, Adidas and Nike are doing the NFT space. Like the third guy in the Puma, the Reebok, these guys are in conversation about what the fuck we're behind. We're behind.
Mhm.
So we gotta make a move. And there's gonna be, hopefully, if the economy stays, I'm not saying it's stable right now, but hopefully if the money printing keeps on going as it's going, the economy will boom, in quotations, and people will start putting money into it. So I believe it's a great opportunity, and I'm not saying that you should invest now in NFTs or do anything like that, but I think it's good.
if I can add, I think yes, I definitely agree that these big corporations coming into the space is a good thing for the space in general. But I think what Jaron is pointing at is that indeed, let's say there's a very important DAO that's working on the Ethereum network or whatever network it may be, and they get swooped up by a corporation that has different ideas and different ideology than whatever is needed to make a network successful like that. And then the last thing we want is, again, going back to an economy where all the big guys make all the money and they control everything, and we're just puppets in a how do you say that, in a theater. So I don't know. Like, I don't know. I do understand the threats that Jaren is talking about, and that people come in with so much money and with not the right intentions, that we're gonna, that this is not gonna happen as the way we want to see it. From a metaverse perspective, I do believe that there will be actual decentralized places where people can build and own. But there will also be a meta, as in Facebook, type of metaverse, where it's probably going to be, the generations older than us that might dip in a little bit there. But I think there's going to be a place for everyone. But yeah, I do understand the threat a little bit, and how that's going to play out exactly. I have no idea.
My last point in that, Vince, is that I think we humans are very predatory from a basis, like a basic behavior. I think that expecting humans to behave different inside the metaverse than what we're doing now in the real world is not going to be the case. I think
True.
potentially, like, the network or the application that's running the metaverse or the winning metaverses might be decentralized. Sorry, my cleaner is in the back cleaning the house, so you can maybe hear that. So that could be the case, but inside the metaverse, this predatory winner-takes-all behavior will still be the norm, I believe. So when it comes to asset collection within a metaverse, you already see it in a lot of projects where there are some big whales that own a lot of. Oh, what? Can you wait maybe 10 minutes? Sorry.
Okay.
There will be winners in the metaverse as well. So
Of course.
decentralization is a beautiful thing when you can solidify it in code. But when it's around human behavior in a metaverse where you can buy assets, where you can buy a house, where you can buy a Bored Ape, the guy that has 10 Bored Apes, he will be the big swinging dick on the street, right?
True.
So he will have more opportunities in the metaverse. And so I'm not about wishful thinking. I'm about, okay, what type of basic human psychology will we meet over there, and how can you work with that? Because you cannot swim into the wave, right? You have to follow the wave. That's what I believe.
Yeah. Lars?
Yeah, I agree with Jurian. I see the threat that Jaran is bringing forward as far as like people with like heavy capital and assets right now, but it's an opportunity. I think the if you look out of a personal perspective or wanting to be a company for the future, I think you need to look in anticipation more than in reaction. Because I think you can diversify yourself, I think it needs to become a bridge for yourself. I'm not speaking like in general for other corporations. I speak for yourself. If you have the ambition to be a front runner or a visionary in some ways, I think you need to create a bridge for yourself where you can have the opportunity to tap into opportunities that are going to present itself when we're going to the technology and the freedom that decentralization gives you in the form of ownership and assets. And assets can be represented in the physical world or in the digital world. I think that does not matter if the standard becomes that it's legalized in a lot of ways, that ownership is represented in the form of an NFT or in the form of a token. Then I think we have the opportunity to start building similar businesses that we are used to in the Web 2 space and in the real world space. You can put those services also. I've seen architects that now started an architect firm for the metaverse. I think that's clever. That's basically like, if people start searching for that, guess what they would find? They're the first one. They're the first, like, first mover advantage. I don't think that you could say that something is going to ultimately be the case, but you have at least first mover advantage if you look at an anticipation perspective. And I agree with Jurian, that's an opportunity. The threats that are there are only there from a perspective of the whole world. I think we're in the 2% that are smarter than the 98%. That's just reality. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this call. So for us, it's more about thinking of what can we do for ourselves to be able to be like in front of everyone. And then it's on us how to educate some people out of the 98%. We cannot control that. I think we shouldn't be focused on the things that we can control, and we should focus on the things that we can control. Even though those big companies might come in, think about how you can cover your bases and how you can be innovative in your way and in your skill set. So I think anticipation and opportunity is the two words that come to mind more than threats, besides when it becomes like controlling, where the DAO becomes almost against you, where you can't control it anymore because big money comes in and it makes decisions for you. That's the only thing that I will say that I do not like about DAOs, is that, like Fun said, I hope they would change some of those functionalities, because right now it's too much about who has the most money will make the decisions, because they can buy up certain voting rights. I think it needs to become a bit more fair in that regard, but that's the only threat that I start to see that is concerning based on our human behavior, where I also agree with Juriaan. I don't think that's going to change. Like that's the same. We're not going to all of a sudden behave completely different because you call it decentralized versus centralized. So yeah, I think that's my view on what Juriaan said and what Joran said too. I think threats are always going to be there. I just think it's about how we respond as an individual, or if you have a company, how you respond as a company.
Thank you. Avan?
Yeah. Yes, I want to react to Lars and Euron both for my perspective with my experience these last, I think, 9 months in the space. For me, I think you guys are really right. Of course, there will be a lot of big companies coming in the space and making a lot of profit. But what I've seen also with like OpenSea, there was like a few months back, there was a OpenSea. I think he was chief marketing officer, and he did inside trading, right? And he got a little bit like penalized by the community. And I think like if things like that keeps happening for businesses building in the space, yeah, it's going to be a problem for a lot of businesses trying to build in a decentralized space, because you can try to like really still centralize your company in the decentralized world, but when you do the wrong move, you will get penalized. And as long as there are no alternatives, of course the OpenSea is still being used, but like Coinbase marketplace is coming, very centralized, of course. But the people I'm talking to are really excited about more decentralized marketplaces. So it's just like for me, it's like I think it's kind of dangerous to build in the space if you can get like penalized by the whole community for being centralized. So that's something you have to keep in mind.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I know what you mean through, and I know what you mean with penalization, or that sorry. My point I wanted to make is that penalization now is possible because it's still a very close-knit community, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, if you have the NFT creators, the NFT traders right now, these guys are all in the same discords. They are all on the same Telegram groups, where we're probably also in. And they are very fast when it comes to we're going to close this guy down. We're going to dox him. We're going to to cancel this community or this group. Why? Because there's a bad actor in place, and we're able to do so because we have the power. We're still a very close-knit community. Somebody said earlier that there's still a technical threshold for if you want to a MetaMask wallet is very easy to do now these days, but if you want to do a little bit more interesting stuff like staking or whatever, there's a technical hurdle for people. That's why the masses are not in it yet. But the moment it's not the 2% anymore, but it's the 10% or the 15 or the 20% of people are very well known with electronic money and with the crypto space, and they're working there, they're moving there. It's not that easy to cancel an organization with only a few thousand people. Like the current mindset of the NFT space is still, we are kind of anarchists, right? We control this space now. We were the earliest ones, we were the first ones, and that's why our will is law. The moment that the moment when there's too much people, that our will is law will become harder, because maybe 50% of people are really invested into OpenSea, right? They have their business on OpenSea. They are just merchants there. And the few owners that are the big whales, they will not be able to move the masses to influence a community like they'll be able to do, like they are able to do now. I'm wondering what you think about that opinion.
Well, so you mean like when we get like Coinbase Marketplace? I think that's a big step, because that's an on ramp. So I think Q1 in 2022 we'll get Coinbase Marketplace. That's actually what you're talking about. So Coinbase has like the largest user base of all wallets in crypto, and they're gonna, I think, make a marketplace where you can also use your fiat to buy NFTs. And it's going to be crazy, of course. You know, it's going to be a huge exposure for the space. A lot of people coming in.
No, but I
But
was
it's
actually talking about, maybe it didn't come across. I was talking about your point that you said, like there was insider trading at OpenSea by the CFO, and
yeah,
he got penalized by the community, right? So
yeah,
there was a lot of backlash, and people said, okay, we want a more decentralized environment,
yeah,
right? We don't. I'm wondering what your opinion is on my opinion.
yeah,
That I believe that now it's still possible, because the current 1% that is moving into this market is very, I'm not saying anarchistic, but they're like the early adopters, right? They want the ultra decentralized environment. They want the newest thing. They are all in the same discords. They can move a very small market by saying we don't want this anymore.
yeah,
Once retail moves into crypto, I mean, like the the discords and stuff like that. I don't know if it's going to stay on Discord, but when it's a more broader thing, will that, we're switching a network, will that still be so simple as just, okay, we're canceling this too
well, I think,
central organization right now?
yeah, I think it will be like, yeah, like there will be some very bad things happening for a lot of people in this space, of course, when they just like come in as retailers and don't understand what this space is. Like, it's the same thing with all these marketplaces. Right now we all feel very safe, but if you're a little bit in Bitcoin, you know, not your keys is not your coins. So if you don't have it on a ledger, yeah, you can be hacked, and all your whole, yeah, your portfolio is gone.
The
So I
first
think
NFTs I bought were actually stolen from my
yeah, yeah,
MetaMask by clicking
yeah,
one link in Discord. One fucking link. It's crazy.
Jeez.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I think a lot of people will get some very hard lessons, and then the space will evolve, right? Because like it's the most important thing, of course, is like that you are really your own bank, and we have to, like, the whole space is like on a base layer. It's just about like more decentralization. I think what you're saying is right. There will be the whole, like a whole big part of retail coming in will not understand this, but they will learn. They will learn their lessons. They will learn, like, it's the same thing with proof of stake and Ethereum. Like, a lot of people are thinking that is gonna ruin Ethereum, because then you just have to have a lot of money to stake, and it's not proof of work anymore. So we'll see how that plays out, you know. And I heard Vitalik talking about like a hybrid method with like a part proof of stake, a part proof of work. But like, these things are very important for the space. I think you know, commercialization will happen, But if we go further and further, yeah, it has to go, in my opinion, to a very decentralized space, and also an anarchistic type of space, in my opinion. Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Lars?
Yeah, I think reputation, like I know many founders of those projects, like the 10K projects, the smaller projects. And I it's really easy to keep your reputation is on the line. And I think that right now that is the standard, right? Like, okay, who's your team? Like you hear this all the time. So who's your team? What's your roadmap? All to me, to be fair, bullshit, because you need to have like truly a market to be able to say that there's true reputation on the line. Like when you talk about Mark Zuckerberg being in court, all of a sudden now not half the people are not like quitting Facebook completely, right? So like that to me shows that
Good point.
like,
That's what I wanted. That's the same point I tried to make. Good point. Yeah.
yeah, so it's like right now, if I see a project that fails because the founders or the people, the team behind it didn't do a good job, I think that's not on them necessarily. That's on me for not doing my due diligence. But when there's big companies, you cannot have that. Like now, it's easy to say for me, oh, I blame those founders for the mistakes that I made in not doing my due diligence. But you cannot do that when a big corporation comes in, because who are you going to blame? Like you have to really like stand on your feet in legal systems to be able to really have a say on if something happens with a big corporation. So it's so difficult right now. And security, talking about ledgers and like being hacked, like I see this happening all the time. And there's also a lot of education that needs to happen there, because I still feel, and I've been in the space for like 6 months, I still don't feel super confident in how all these things work. Like in the beginning, I did not know that if you put the gas prices differently, if you're trying to buy an NFT and it fails the transaction, I actually do have to pay for the gas in the transaction. I did not know that. So imagine you're a 60-year-old coming into the space wanting to buy an NFT from your granddaughter, and then you're going, and the first thing you do is, the gas, wait, transaction is $120. That can't be right. Let's lower this. Then you lower it, and now you lost $30. Guess what? That 60-year-old is never coming back into the space anytime soon. My point is, education needs to be the main priority if you're wanting to be in this space. Onboarding people into your own projects, into your own stuff, figuring out what blockchains have easy onboarding and on-ramping. I think Coinbase is a good step forward, but I think it takes away a little bit of that decentralization. I rather have people doing fiat transactions and airdropping or transferring NFTs to wallets than going in a centralization route, because it then defeats the purpose. Why are we then on this whole thing? Why we not just do it on Shopify if we're gonna do it that way? So again, there's so many things that are not cleared out yet, because we don't know what the 98% wants. It's really easy for the 2% to say this is how we want it, but you don't have a market to even consider yourself to be big. So I think that's the biggest question that is not answered and is going to be answered in the following year. So based on that, I can say that you can blame anyone now, but I don't think you could blame anyone then when the big corporations have established themselves.
Yeah. If I may add a little story here, I got scammed into my first when I tried to buy my first NFT.
Nice.
I made a horrible mistake, and it's probably going to be a story that I can tell for the next 20 years. I got into a Discord. I got one of these stupid DMs, but I was on my phone, and I did not recognize it was a DM instead of just a message from the Discord. And there was a new mint live, whatever. So I was hyped. It's like this is a sign from above. I have to do this mint now, because I was been wanting to do a mint for a while now. I'm looking around, and so okay, now fuck it. I'm just gonna try it. And then I did it. And then in the end, I was like in the Discord, yeah, I minted. And when can I see my my NFT? Everybody's like, what do you mean? I was like, oh fuck. Then I knew that I lost. It was $180. It was not the world, but I was like, oh my god, this is so typical. but now I know a lot more about that. So it's gonna happen, I guess, to way more people than just me.
Yeah, that happens to everybody, man.
Yeah. Um, I think it's a very interesting discussion, people, in general. I don't know if people have more to add. On the original agenda, we had a branding question also on our good friend Max Verstappen, who decided to switch his number from 33 to 1. I don't think who finds that wise, who doesn't find that wise, and if you guys want to discuss that, let me know. If not, all good. We can. I kind of do still want to hear Ferry's opinion on where this is going, and we're talking, of course, humans and psychology and all these matters. But I think I just got Jaren who wants to say something about Max.
If Max is there, I'm there, so don't worry about that. No, I think he answered that question himself. He said, "Why wouldn't I go for number one? It's more revenue for me for merchandise." He said it
He
himself
actually
in an
said that.
interview. Yeah, he said it. He said it. He said it with a smile. But come
Yeah.
on, if it's part. You don't see it very often. I cannot remember who was the last world champion who actually did it, but so from a branding perspective, it's not the best move, changing his iconic number 33 to 1, but it's also something that he worked for a very long time. So why not show people that he's the number one? So yeah,
But does he have to give it away if he then becomes second next year?
yeah. It's only when you're a world champion. Yeah, yeah. So
Ooh.
if he's not world champion, then he has to go back to number 30.
Okay, Kasha.
I think it's a great move. I think Sebastian Vettel was the last one. That's before Lewis Hamilton, because then Rosberg won, but he left.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's having a new world champion. Like, let's just talk about that. This is just amazing for F1. We always had
Yeah.
Lewis Hamilton, and we always watched it and like, oh, again,
Boring.
Mexico, he already got it. And I think just having someone driving number one, and yeah, I think it's just amazing, and it's a brand new face, and he's young, and I think David Coulthard said that people will find him playing esports and stuff like that during off season. So it's almost like he's
Mhm.
gonna catch like the whole new young people. I have to finish now. Okay. That's it. My grandma.
I forgot that we have a Lewis Hamilton fan on the call as well, Mr. London himself, David.
I tried to stay silent for long enough. No, I mean, speaking unobjectively, I think it's a great move. I think even if you're speaking from an F1 perspective, just looking at the Drive to Survive series has brought a breath of fresh air into the sport, and
For sure.
the amount of fans globally that's brought in, and you're probably, as Kasia mentioned, watching him play esports in the summer of his off season, it's going to bring in a huge fan base for the sport. So I think it does make sense revenue wise, and not just revenue wise, but just as a sport productivity wise, and just seeing him about, knowing him as the number one would be great for fans. Well, Max Verstappen fans, I should say. So yeah.
Well, it's definitely on next year. I think the Drive to Survive move by the F1 with Netflix is one of the best marketing stunts I've seen in the last 4 years, because it opened up a whole. That's what me and Gregory both actually. That's how we got hooked to F1. We weren't. I mean, of course, we understood and we knew about Max Verstappen and Lewis and all these things, but it was like Kasia said. I strongly believe that in any sport, if there are no heroes, there's no attention to the sport. That's basically how it works. I always give cycling as a great example. I remember back in the day when there was Armstrong and Ulrich battling each other, and it was dirty and it was nasty and it was amazing. And, then the sport cycling was a lot bigger than it is now, but there's no characters. There's no big characters now in that sport. If you ask me from an outside perspective, like, I'm not a diehard cycling fan. And of course, now with the whole Drive to Survive showed exactly what's so good about, what I always try to tell people when you talk about personal branding or brands in general is you can get to know these guys, and you got to understand the politics and the relationships in between these teams, and especially the drivers. Like, you're gonna appreciate certain people, and then you're gonna become fan of the sport or the driver. So a big move from the question number 1 to number 33. Whatever he decides is the right move, in my opinion. He can take 99 next year if he feels that that's what he has to do. Then that's his brand. That's what he decides. And he, to me, come again from an outsider looking in. He is Max Verstappen doesn't care about anything. At like from media, branding, photo shoots. You can even see it at his face. But that's also a brand. You know what I'm saying? It's that's that's who he is. So he wants to be number 1. He became number 1, and now he's going to take the fucking number 1. I think it was the right decision. Either he stayed with 33 or he picked number 1. Lars?
Yeah, I think on the branding perspective, I think behind the scenes in anything you do in business is the best move, period. People are so drawn to knowing what is behind the scenes, like knowing what goes on, no matter if this, and I think I lived in the US when the series came out from Netflix, and in the US, nobody gives a shit about Formula One. Like they have NASCAR, right? Like that's what they would say. I lived there for a long time. But now you start to see like, what this is interesting. Like it's the same with like how they approach football / soccer. Like it's like Messi and Ronaldo to them is like the 2 names that they might know. It's the same thing. Rivalry makes it that, okay, I wanted to watch El Clasico back then. And the same counts for Hamilton versus Verstappen. So out of a branding perspective, I think behind the scenes creates it that people have a personal feeling and that they can pick their hero. I think it's important. People always like to pick a side. Like it's not like there's not many people that would say, it don't really matter who wins. You're always going to have like your hero that you want to pick. And I think that's and then doing the number 1 statement is almost like you're poking for Hamilton to say, you know what, I'm going to show you that this was a one-time deal, and that's the beauty of branding. You can fill in the story yourself of what is going to happen. So I think it's a great move. I think it is provocative, and I think it creates a response. And I know that if you can see in Lewis's behavior that he is like, I'm calm, I'm accepting this. I'm not the one that's going to fight this. I'm not going to be the one that's going to say, I'm going to stay respectful and I'm going to just let my driving do the talking next season to say that this was a one-time thing. And I think that's the beauty of Max also saying, yeah, I want number 1, because this, like, he knows too, if Lewis comes back and is at full power and Mercedes has a good car, then it's going to be a tough ride for him next year. So I think it's a beautiful rivalry, because they're so different, but they have so much respect. And that's kind of similar to how Messi and Ronaldo is. They're so different, but they have so much respect. And I think in sports, you need that. You need that feeling that you can respect your rivals, but at the same time, you are so different in your approaches. You're so different in your behavior. So I think it's a great move out of the perspective of Formula One in general, not just Max. Maybe Max had a whisper in his ear, you should do this because this will be provocative. You don't know if it was truly his decision, but I think that he definitely feels like this is the chance that he has to take as a sportsman. So I definitely think it's a good move.
Yeah. I just quickly before I go to Kasha, the only thing the F1 needs now is an American driver. Talking about heroes. So we need an American driver to step up, and then F1 is going to explode in the US.
Not gonna happen.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
I agree with that.
F1 is exciting now. We don't need American drivers. But I think what I've heard is Max is not going to be on the next Drive to Survive. They probably.
No, he said he wanted out. Yeah.
Yeah.
He said he didn't like the way they positioned him and the things that they showed off of him, which I kind of understood, but so he said, "Fuck you."
But like another thing, like think about even the psychology between the fight between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. Obviously now there is this talk of, will Lewis drive in the next season, which I think he will. I think he's just staying silent because he has not really lost championship for a long time, and being on the top. I mean, we can't just blame him. You can't just say something like it's like top of the racing, and he just lost it. He just probably needs to process that, even though he has been like knighted in the meantime. But I think for Lewis now, I mean, have you guys noticed every time he got penalty and he was at the back, it's almost like this is worst for Max Verstappen because he's just going to charge. And I
To
think
drive, yeah.
next season, even if they will have comparable cars, I think Lewis will just be on fire. Even though how much I really like Max Verstappen more than Lewis, but knowing him, he's been in the game a long time, stuff like that. No, seeing Max Verstappen driving number one, that will just give him just that extra fuel to.
It's
I
a
mean,
red flag for a bull.
hopefully, the cars will be similar. Hopefully, we see a third team in the game. But I think this season was something that we might just not see it for a long time, like the same battle.
True.
But I hopefully, I don't know, we'll see something similar.
Yeah. Paul, you had something to add, or you took your hand away? No.
Yeah, sorry, fans.
Oh,
Hi. Well, yeah, I was also thinking about the branding perspective of this, and Max choosing for number one is it brings in some revenue, but it's only short term, so it doesn't really
true.
probably doesn't really matter if you really look at it. Choosing not to go into Drive to Survive next season will probably cost him much more money. And then next to that, because but I'm really wondering how the production of Drive to Survive will put Max Verstappen in it, because he won't be like, they won't interview him, but he will be in it, of course. So will he be the new villain of Formula One, for example, in Drive to Survive? And that's quite a risk as well for your branding at the same time. I think it's a really cool decision and it really fits him. But on the other hand, it can be a risk as well, because as we know, yeah, they can make you like say anything on television or put you in a totally other perspective. So I'm really curious what will happen there.
Yeah, nice. And welcome. Jaren.
Yeah, and that's, I think you summed it up a bit there. I've been watching Formula One for 25 years. So I'm hardcore in that regard. So before Max and before Jos, I was, or not before Jos, I've seen Jos race. I think for the new fans, Drive to Survive is really, really amazing to get them into the sport. But for me personally, after season one, I didn't watch it anymore because I knew the amount of creating certain situations and certain rivalries. I think they missed it there. I know why they did it. It's Netflix. It's typically American, the way they do it, the way they spice things up. But I think for all the hardcore fans, they lost a lot of them there. And I think that's the reason that Max says, I don't mind being on TV. I don't mind showing what I'm worth, but it has to be a real picture and not something that has been created just to hype things up. And that's that's why I don't watch it anymore.
Cool. Julian?
Yes, I wanted to ask your guys' perspective on the fact that he was nominated Man of or Sportsman of the Year, and he won, but he did not collect his prize. His father came instead of him. I don't know if the Dutch people, or Jaran, you're a fan, you know about this. I don't know if any other knew about this. I think, for me, that is a sign of big weakness on his part when it comes to branding. He should have stood there himself. I know he said he's tired and stuff like that. I think that's very bad. And I have the feeling, it's a strange little inkling feeling I have inside, that he achieved his own and his dad's goal by becoming the number one. What is his next goal? Like, this whole character of Max Verstappen was built around young guy coming in, shitty car in the beginning, moving up the ranks, and eventually he became the world champion, right? In few seasons. So he did what he had to do. This guy, for me, feels like a very hardcore motivated person that is very goal oriented. Yaran, I'm interested to understand, do you have a perspective on what is his next goal? Because I have a strange inkling that he's not next year, he's not going to be the world champion, and he might even flame out. Very strange, because he's not that driven anymore.
No, I think, and you saw it with if you look at the real top athletes like Hamilton, like Max, but also Federer, name the guys that have been on top for a long time. I think Max has that that drive, but and that's the fun thing. He doesn't give a fuck about branding. He has a team that gives a shit, and he doesn't at all. Even when he won the Dutch Sportsman of the Year award, I think in 2016 after his first victory, he didn't show up until the very last moment because he was in the Netherlands anyway, but not because he thought that was a a good branding act in that regard. Compare him a bit. I think that's maybe a good one. Compare him a bit with Kimi Raikkonen. If you do an interview with him, if you put him on stage without alcohol, he's not a very fun guy. And I think Max isn't the charismatic guy. He's, when you listen to him, sometimes I'm like, come on, Max, smile a little, like show a bit of emotion, but that is just him. The only thing he will do is focus on the racing. And I think that as long as he has a good car, of course, you see that with Mercedes. That's the main reason that Lewis won 7 world championships, because he's a fantastic driver, but you need to have a car. And what we saw this year is that Max elevated Red Bull's performance due to the driver he is, just raw talent. So I think that he will always be able to give everything that he has and even more for the next 15 years. I really think so. But I think we will more and more see him go into the Kimi Raikkonen mode, I believe.
Interesting. David, I did not forget about you, but before I go to you, what I want to add to Jurian's how do you say that, tickling feeling you had. I don't know if you guys know the story of Tyson Fury, the boxer. Tyson Fury is one of the greatest heavyweights we've ever seen, and he became a world champion heavyweight. I think it was 4 years ago, for the first time. And after that, he completely lost himself. I've read his book because I started to admire. At first, like there was a moment he got disqualified for cocaine abuse, and when I first got into the sport, I thought, I hate people like that. Like, you fucking loser. Like, how can you throw away all that, hard work, and you think with cocaine you can just do that, and like you throw away these opportunities that you have. Like, people would kill for an opportunity like this to fight at that stage. And so I never really liked him. And then I got to know him again, going back to personal branding. Started his performances, started reading his book, and then he started explaining that indeed that's exactly what he had, Jurian. He said, I've been fighting all my life since I was little, and the only thing I wanted to do was become a world champion, a heavyweight world champion. And he said, the moment I had that, I went on vacation, and I thought to myself, now the hell what? Like, what now what? There's nobody that can beat me. He fought everyone. He said, there's nobody that can touch me. Like, what? I don't know. And then he started losing himself. He started using drugs, alcohol, and he actually tried to kill himself. Like, he tried to commit suicide because he had no more goal in life, which is insane. And they took everything away from him. And he said that eventually he flipped the switch, and he said, I gained another a different perspective on life, but also, like, I'll show you motherfuckers that I'm the best ever. And that's what he did. And he weighed 180 kilos or something. There's this picture of him that he's so big, and then he started training again. He said, I just started with running again every morning, even though it was only a little, and he built himself back up, and he became world champion again. And I don't think there's anybody who can touch him at this point. He's the best heavyweight that we've seen the last couple of years, and probably for the next couple of years as well. And I have immense respect. But yes, that tinkling feeling, to go back to your question, Rian, is definitely a thing. But I do believe I have to agree with Jaron. I don't think Max is that kind of guy. I think the heated rivalry with Lewis will remain. It would be worse if Lewis would quit and Max would drive next year and nobody's even close to him. He might get bored then. From a professional, from an ambition perspective, become a champion. We've seen it with Ronaldinho, with some soccer players that, of course, lost themselves. Like, what the fuck am I doing this for? I'm beating everyone. It's too easy. But yeah, that's a little story I wanted to give. David.
No, that was actually really cool. Just on just on a back to F1 perspective, just for a quick sec. I agree with Jon in terms of, like, I completely see the Kimi Räikkönen comparison to Max. I actually think it's a lot closer than people think. I actually find it quite comical. But I think seeing Max in his car when he's like fucking furious and he's like swearing in the team radio, I think that's the best bit about him, and it's probably the only thing I like about him.
True.
But going forward, just from a branding perspective, from an F1 point of view as a whole, I think, and this is just my point of view on this, and you may disagree, but I think the thing to take it to the next level, just in terms of branding, is to see a Ferrari champion again. I think that would be really cool, just for the nostalgia of, you know, Michael Schumacher, etc. I think Charles Leclerc is a great driver. Carlos Sainz is also a great driver. So I don't know if you guys agree, but maybe seeing a Ferrari champion again, or maybe just seeing them closer to the pack in terms of Mercedes and Red Bull, could be really cool. Again, I think it depends on, you know, the cars of next year, but I think that could be a really cool one, just a perspective of driving the sport forward.
Or a Williams, you know? How amazing would that be?
It would be, yeah.
It would be great.
Yeah, Kasia?
I think what like really killed F1 in the past couple of years was just Mercedes being on the top. It's almost like Mercedes 10 seconds ahead, everyone else. And no one's really interested who's going to win because everyone knows. The most exciting thing was, I don't know which season was, when Rosberg really bet, like Rosberg was really close to Hamilton and he won it. But now suddenly we have a new champion. And that's what I'm saying. If we have another 4 teams, like 4 teams fighting, that would be just the pinnacle of F1. Imagine McLaren coming back, Ferrari coming back, or Williams maybe beating, I don't know.
Yeah, I just find it really silly that how come a McLaren, right, ultimate supercar company in the world, and a Ferrari, how come these brands lose from a brand that makes soda in a can, right?
Yeah.
Like, what the? So I agree totally with David. Like, it would be amazing if a Ferrari would be like in the top, battling with Mercedes. Of course, a Ferrari is owned by Fiat, so it's not like a purely sports car brand. But I just find it ridiculous that those kind of brands, that they on the track are not able to outperform the current winners. Actually, I would watch it more. I'm not a big F1 fan, but I would watch it more if I would see the red cars in front. Definitely, I think also the brand is more awesome.
Yeah,
but yeah.
To add to that quickly before we go into Jaron, I think it's in football, soccer, it's the same, and it's in basketball the same. Basketball's in a better place, they always say, when the Lakers are good, when the Boston Celtics are good, and when the New York Knicks are good. You know, and with football, what we're seeing happening right now with Barcelona is fucking sad. I'm a Madrid guy because I'm a Ronaldo guy, but to see Barcelona not matter, it sucks, you know. So I think it's in those sports it's the same, and that will be the same for F1. Seeing, indeed, I would love to see Ferrari battle again. But my hopes are on Orlando Norris. Jaron?
Yeah, that is with everything. And exactly, Jurjan, why isn't McLaren and Ferrari on top? Why is Barcelona not doing what they should be doing? If you look in the Dutch league, why is Roda not good anymore? That's close to home. I'm not a Roda fan at all. It all has to do with having the wrong people in key places. It's just mismanagement.
Sure.
And it was the case with Ferrari, just having just a management that doesn't know what they're doing. Same for McLaren. Why is McLaren on top again? Because they have good people in good places, but it takes a long time to clean up shit. It's a dirty job, and it takes a very, very long time. And it is with any business, with any sports team, with everything in life. If you have the wrong people in the wrong place, you'll fail every time.
True. Kasia?
Can I just ask one question? I'm not sure if it's even on the top. It's topic F1. What do you guys think about the decision that Daniel Ricciardo made to leave Red Bull? I think it was wrong decision, but I'm curious what you guys think.
What would you do, Kasia, for 30 million a year?
Yeah.
Yes, I get that point, but it's almost like he's forgotten. He's forgotten. The only thing that keeps him is his personality, because it's, oh, he's funny and he's charming,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. But he won one race and it was, oh, he's coming back, and nothing. Everyone's talk about Lando Norris from McLaren. And he's
Yes.
what? He's 33.
Yeah, he's done. But he was done the moment he left, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the partnership that they had with Max, that was exciting. I mean, that moment that they crashed in Baku, everyone was talking about that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think when they both raced, it was amazing to see. I don't know what do you guys think?
Well, just from an athlete perspective, and probably Lars will agree with me. There's not a lot of people that are top athletes that can accept the fact that they will forever be a number two, and that has to do with ego. A lot of ego. And if somebody else then says, "Well, we'll pay you 30 million if you come race for us," it's like, fuck yes. So, David.
I agree. I think it was a bad decision in terms of his career. But if you want to talk about personal brand, I think he's probably got one of the best in the game. The fact that we're still speaking about him and he hasn't competed in years, I think says it all. His personality, how he's able to drive that through. I don't know if you guys have ever checked out his YouTube channel, where he's actually got some cool videos on there where he's I think he was brewing his own beer or something, and he has a cult following, and I think that just says it all. If I don't know, it's not Max's thing, but if Max was to have that, it'd probably be double the size that he is now. Also, Lewis's personal brand is incredible, but again, it comes from more of a good guy image sometimes. But yeah, just in terms of Daniel Ricciardo, I think, yes, of course, his career probably will never, ever happen in terms of him being a world champion. But again, for 30 million a year, what would you do? I would probably make the same decision. But in terms of personal brand, you have to give it to him, like, to be able to still be known as that nice guy and people still have, high regards of him, and just not just as a racer, but as a person, says it all, in my opinion.
True. Lars, last one before I'm going to round it up here.
You want to feel appreciated. That's what I want to say. You want to feel appreciated. Yeah. As a sportsman, I know this. Like, I cannot deal with the fact that, like, a coach not start to see you the way that you feel like you deserve to be seen. So when Renault pitches this new way of doing things, like, I know that's like, to me, another coach telling me, we're going to put you in this role and you're going to do these things and you're going to excel. In reality, that might not happen. So it was the wrong decision looking back. But for him in that moment, he thought that Renault might have that ability to do something, or that he could compete. And it didn't turn out that way. And that is what killed him. But I think that it was the appreciation that he was lacking. And that's why he felt like he had to make a move, or he had to respond in some way. Because I think that mental health plays a big role, and confidence plays a big role too in sports. But this is not just in sports. This is in anything that you do. If you're not in a good mental health space, you can never be successful. And he was just he made the wrong bet, and I think that he is still the same guy. He's still that personality, but I think out of a competitive perspective, I don't think that he would ever win a world championship. No, I don't think that. I think that's done, and that's okay if he is like fine with being in the middle of the pack and continuously building his brand and being the joker that always has a smile on his face. Then that's good for him, but he's never going to play the role that he can compete with the top 2 or 3 of Formula One. I think Lando Norris also is my dark horse in the future.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I totally agree. Maybe the mental health aspect will be a good subject for next year. David had with Lando Norris as a new English guy to root for, then I guess. Exactly. Thank you, everyone. Good turnout. It was nice to see some new faces in here, and it was good discussions on several topics. I'll share the video again with everyone. I hope to see you again. Well, let's see if we can make one happen next week. Of course, everybody will be busy with holidays and all that stuff, but we'll see what happens in the Discord. And for the rest, I'll see you guys in the Discord. And thanks again.
Yeah, thank you guys. Bye bye.
Thanks, Vince.
Cheers. Bye bye.
Later. Bye bye.